I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with my colleague, Jemima McEvoy, who's on the wealth team talking about women. What's the breakdown on this year's list for billionaires? Are we seeing more women?
So we're seeing a few more women, but women are still a minority on the billionaires list. This year was no different. So we had, 2,640 billionaires that we were able to identify around the world, and 337 of them are women. That's 10 more than last year, but still women only make up about 13% of global billionaires, up from 12% last year. So slow progress, but progress nonetheless, I guess.
I would presume from previous years that a lot of those would be they've married into wealth, they've inherited their wealth. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so generally over 70% of the women on our list qualify as inherited wealth. So inherited from a spouse, a parent, family member and such. The minority are self-made, and within that, inherited wealth, there are a good portion of women who are actively growing the wealth that they inherited, but simultaneously
it's not how you get it, it's what you do with it. Well,
Exactly.
Talk about some of the names that stood out, like any new names on the list that we should be, really keeping our eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have the richest person who is new to this list as a woman this year. Her name is Rohika Cyrus. She's an Indian billionaire, and she inherited, about $7 billion from her husband, who died last year in a car crash, just a few months after his dad, who was a billionaire, died and passed the wealth on to him. So kind of went through a bit of a waterfall over the course of just a few months, and now she is sitting pretty high up on our list with a $7 billion fortune. And that's tied up in the Indian conglomerate Tata Sons, which, is a parent company for about 30 different businesses. So
And many different billionaires.
And she's one of them. So that's kind of a sudden and notable newcomer. Another one is somebody who actually has been a billionaire for a few years, but we were only just able to confirm her. And that's Elizabeth DeLuca. She is the widow of one of the co-founders of Subway sandwiches, the U.S. restaurant giant, Fred DeLuca, who died in 2015. And we were able to do a little digging into her wealth this year and confirm that she's worth at a minimum $4 billion. And that's interesting right now because Subway's up for sale, and the other co-founder, Peter Buck, who died in 2021. He decided to leave his fortune to his foundation, to charity. So that was recently announced, and everybody's kind of looking at Elizabeth now and wondering what she's going to do with it.
Is she active in the business? Because I'm thinking about who's the woman from In-N-Out?
Lindsay Snyder.
So Lindsay Snyder, you can inherit and then actually get involved in the business and grow it. Or a lot of these people who have the wealth, they kind of sit on it. They might be philanthropists, but they're not actually actively involved in business. What's the case with the Subway woman?
Elizabeth is not involved in the business. I spoke to some Subway franchisees, and they didn't even know if she was their owner or not. She's definitely a silent owner. But she's been quietly giving a lot of money away to charity. She's given over $400 million to her foundation since her husband died in 2015. And that doesn't include the past 2 years because the charitable documents haven't been released yet for us to see how much she's given. So that's a lot of money in a very short amount of time. She has a big philanthropic name already in the Florida community where she lives. But she's very private. She did not respond to many, many attempts at contacting her for this list, and she just seems to be wanting to enjoy her wealth in silence right now.
So Jemima, let's talk about some of the women who are taking what they have and growing it. Maybe they're self-made, maybe they've inherited it. Anyone stand out?
I think the term heiress and inheritance can kind of lump people into one category, when in fact there are a number of women who inherited fortunes or inherited a business that maybe wasn't doing very well, and they've transformed it into something completely different today and have entirely earned their position on the list. One good example of that is Lindsay Snyder, who
In and Out.
Yeah, In and Out, the Burger Queen, as we call her. She, inherited the business from her grandparents, or her grandparents founded the business in the 1940s. And she was kind of an unlikely person to inherit it. Her dad died of a drug overdose. Her uncle was the next person that they were considering handing it off to, and he also died suddenly, and it fell into her hands. She's very young. She's only 40. And she's tripled In and Out's revenue since taking over in 2010 as CEO. And she's, had a very meticulous and smart growth strategy for the business, which has just transformed it.
That's interesting. You often find that, whether they're billionaires or not, but you find that in politics a lot, that sort of the reluctant female leader can be an amazing leader, or I'm thinking of Kay Graham for the Washington Post, that they bring a different style, maybe a humbler style that might actually be good for the business. Have you met, you've met the In and Out? Have you met her, or do you have any sense as to how people think about her as a leader?
I haven't met her, but for the World Billionaires issue that we're releasing with the list, I went to Poland and met Poland's richest woman, Dominica Kulcheck, who inherited her fortune. Her dad, Jan Kulcheck, was the richest man in Poland. And when he died in 2013, he kind of split his empire between his son and his daughter.
How's his son doing?
Well, this is the interesting thing about it, is Dominica... she described Poland and her household growing up as very patriarchal, and she was never really given the opportunity to get involved in the family business in the same way her brother was. So 2 years before her dad's death, the father put the son in charge of the business, and basically when he died, she was left a ton of cash, and the son was given, the empire. And they were equally rich. She suddenly has this moment where she realizes, like, hey, this is mine too. This should be equally mine. And she saves a renewable energy company that her brother is trying to sell from their family, assets. And today, that's worth more than 5 times the amount it was when she saved it back in 2018. And it's become kind of a critical component of this, Russia-Ukraine war energy crisis that's happening in Europe.
It's like a happy version of Succession.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So she fought for it, and she says she never really thought she could have a role in the family business. So I think that there is still a lot of that, internal misogyny happening in a lot of these billionaire families that kind of leaves women out of the fray. At least that's her story.
Well, no, I think it's fascinating. It's a trend you see far below the billionaire. Just in general in business, you're seeing a lot of women getting in and inheriting these companies from their fathers, frankly, and doing very well. I can think of several examples, and I'm not going to have, Ivanka Trump be one of them, but, you could make the case there.